to see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Good evening, Palm Bay. Good evening, Brevard County and a whole. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to yet another edition of Palm Bay Live. And we are here tonight to have a debate between county court judges. Hopefully, one of them will be elected to Group 6. And they're in the studio with me tonight, Miss Maggie and Miss Clarissa, and they're smiling. I can see them. They're ready to join you to tell you about their life story, who they are, and why they're running for this position. And so let's bring them on the screen. And here they are. Here they are, Brevard County. I need you to do me a huge favor tonight. We need to get this count up because I know they have a great story to tell you about who they are and why they're running. So I want you to smack the like button, hit the share button, share it across Brevard County because they're going to be representing you on the bench. At some point, one of them will be. And so they need to get your message out. So your job for me tonight is, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook or any of the other social media platforms, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get into it. Good evening, ladies. How are you doing?
Good evening. How are you doing, Mr. Bastiana?
Good. So to get it started, I would need you guys to kind of briefly introduce yourself to the audience and pretty much tell them who you are and why you're running for this office. And then we're going to get into a list of questions. Now, audience, both attorneys, they agree to take questions from you tonight. So they will be taking questions from you tonight. And so you can drop your questions in the comments and we'll bring them up on the screen. And if they choose to answer it, they'll let me know. And then they'll go forward and answer the question. All right. So just so you know, and so please prepare your questions and let's get ready to roll. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
You go first?
I was going to say.
All right. Let me go ahead and remove myself and Maggie from the screen. So you will have the screen to introduce yourself.
Hello, Palm Bay voters and citizens of Brevard. My name is Clarissa Harrell. And as you heard from Mr. Vassiana, I'm a candidate for county court judge here in Brevard County for Group 6. And I'm especially excited to speak to Palm Bay residents tonight. I have a very huge affection for Palm Bay and connection to Palm Bay. I'm a graduate of Palm Bay High School. I've done a substantial amount of work in the city of Palm Bay, especially with youth and legal education. I taught a class at UCF on the Palm Bay campus once. I also have done a lot of work with your police officers, both detectives and patrol officers in the city of Palm Bay, working on search warrants and arrest warrants and affidavits over the past 5 years, in particular with the state attorney's office. I have been endorsed by your mayor, Mayor Rob Medina, as well as the retired chief deputy of the Palm Bay Police Department, John Blackledge. So I feel very honored to have that support from those distinguished people in the city of Palm Bay. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you more about my background and credentials. Mr. Vasiana has given us a list of fantastic questions I know we'll cover throughout the evening. I'm going to start out just by telling you that I'm a 30-year trial attorney here in Brevard County. My entire career has been spent in the courtrooms of this county, prosecuting cases and serious criminal cases, as well as doing civil litigation, family law, and child welfare law continuously. A lot of very difficult, challenging, important work for the community for the past 30 years. So I'm very grateful to have a chance here tonight to talk to you about my experience, my credentials to be a judge. And I know there's some questions that lie ahead related to my reasons for wanting to do this. And I'll be looking forward to sharing those with you, those answers. And I'm very, again, grateful that you've invited us here, both Maggie and me here, to speak to you tonight. Look forward to your questions as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Miss Clarissa. And so, Miss Maggie, it's now your turn to introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, hello, all of the citizens of Palm Bay and the citizens of Brevard County. My name is Maggie Wagner. I'm Margaret by birth. I was named after my grandmother, but everybody calls me Maggie. I have lived in Brevard County pretty much my entire life. My family came here in 1955, and all of my family, all of my aunts, uncles, and my mother, and my 9 cousins all graduated from O'Galley High School. I was the only one that graduated from Mel High. So it's made football games a little uncomfortable. But I am from this county. We've been here for generations, and I was so happy to have the opportunity to come and speak tonight and have the privilege to run for county judge. After graduating from high school, I went on to FSU. I got my undergraduate degree and I went to law school at Stetson University College of Law in St. Petersburg. After all of that, I decided that there is no place else that I would rather live my life and raise my family than here in Brevard County. It gave me such a wonderful childhood growing up, and I wanted to give that to my children. And so I started my legal career here. I was a public defender for 6 years, which public defenders serve the indigent citizens of Brevard County in criminal court. And after 6 years of service to the citizens of Brevard County in that facet, I entered into private practice, and I've been running a small business, a law firm, for the last over 12 years. I have over 18 years of experience, all trial work here in Brevard County. I also practice as a private attorney in other counties all around the state of Florida, but primarily in Brevard. In private practice, I also went and did some family law cases. I did some civil court cases, small claims court, basically all of the things that a county court judge would need experience in order to be an effective Brevard County judge. I sit on the board of Legal Aid and of Brevard County Bar Association, of Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. I am qualified as an attorney ad litem to advocate for abused children in the system, and I volunteer for almost a decade now, helping to train law enforcement officers over at now what is Eastern Florida State College at their interview and interrogations course. So I believe that in my practice and in the legal field, it's important to have a well-rounded background. I have all of that. I have my children, I have my family, and I decided what better way to give back to my community than to run for county judge, to take all of that experience running those trial dockets on a daily basis and giving back to our citizens and continue to do that in this capacity. So I'm super excited for that. I'm super excited for the elections. For those of you who don't know, mail-in ballots are out. Early voting starts on October 21st and goes to November 2nd. And then Election Day is obviously on the 5th. So thank you so much for having us here tonight, Kevin. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in.
Okay, great. Awesome. Let's bring Miss Clarissa back on the stage too as well. Let's get started, ladies. You have introduced yourself to the public, and we are ready to roll. All right. The first question is the obvious one. Why do you want to be a judge? What makes you want to be a judge? Let's go with Maggie first, and then we go to Clarissa.
Well, I kind of touched on it a little bit in my opening. I mean, being a county judge is serving the citizens of Brevard County, which is what I have done for my over 18 years. I think I'm at 18 and a half now. It's 18 in April. And that's what I've done so far in my entire legal career. And the next step is to become a county judge. While I was practicing, or still am practicing as an attorney, I've had the opportunity to not only advocate for the citizens of Brevard County, which for a lot of times in the criminal justice system, indigent people are the people that are suffering the most in our community, not just because they're poor socioeconomic status, but a lot of them have mental health issues. A lot of them have drug addiction issues. A lot of them are veterans that come through our system. And as an advocate for them in the criminal justice system, I see the struggles that they have, and I see the struggles within the justice system to help those people, to serve them efficiently and effectively, to make sure they get fair justice, and to make sure that they have services and they're set up for success to get out of the criminal justice system. And I've had the opportunity to train what are called CLIs, certified legal interns, in my career. I'm training one right now through the Public Defender's Office. I help them, and I serve with Blaze Tredis, who's our elected public official. He's also endorsed me in this campaign, which I appreciate greatly. It means a lot to me. But I've had the opportunity to train new incoming lawyers. I've also been with new baby state attorneys who are coming in and kind of help train them. I've helped through Brevard Legal Aid with my volunteer work and training law enforcement. So I have all of these different things that I've done, and I have experience in all those. So what better way to sit in service to my community than sit as a judge and continue to serve in the best possible way that I could, in the most effective way that I can, to make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Miss Clarissa, it is your turn to shine. Go ahead and tell us why you want to be a judge.
Thank you. As Maggie said, really, I think the primary goal is to serve. I, too, am a product of the Brevard County community. I love this community. I was born in Cape Canaveral, grew up at the Air Force Base before traveling around with the Air Force as part of a military family for a while, came back here for high school. My family's lived in Palm Bay for more than 20 years and more recently in the Century Vieira area. My heart is with Brevard County, and I would like to continue to serve. I have been serving as a criminal prosecutor for 12 years of my 30 years of trial attorney experience, working closely with victims of crime, including child victims of sex abuse, victims of very violent crime, survivors of and murder cases where their loved ones were killed by violent criminals. For the past 5 years, I've been serving this community in the Career Criminal and Firearms Unit of the State Attorney's Office, trying to put the most serious offenders who pose the greatest danger to citizens behind bars. And those cases include drug trafficking, aggravated battery, gunshot wounds to police officers and other citizens in the county, the whole gamut of serious crimes that relate to habitual felony offenders, Anti-Murder Act offenders, prison releasee reoffenders, the most serious types of criminals and crimes that we have. I have poured my heart and soul into representing the state of Florida, the people of the state of Florida who live in this circuit in those cases. Most recently, just this past July, I returned to the unit that is closest to my heart. It's the Child Abuse and Sex Crimes Unit. And that unit, of course, the goal is to prevent offenders from continuing to harm children in our community. So wanting to be a judge is an extension of my desire to serve and protect this community. Judges do have a role in protection of the community. It's laid out in the sentencing statutes. It's laid out in the juvenile delinquency statutes, and it's laid out in the bond statute, which we'll be discussing shortly. There is a role that judges carry to do their best to not only protect the constitutional rights of every citizen who comes into the courtroom, to promote a courtroom atmosphere that facilitates the best work of everyone in that courtroom, and to protect the citizens of our county. I mean, we want to promote a county that is a safe, enjoyable, clean, positive place to live. And every judge in this circuit and county has a role to play in that goal. And my goal, my hope would be, my aspiration is to elevate court proceedings, to emphasize professionalism, dignity, courtesy, careful listening to everything that both attorneys and their clients have to tell the court, careful consideration of the legal issues, very heavy preparation before every court proceeding to make sure all the legal issues are identified and vetted, and preparation of detailed court orders that are transparent to citizens in the way that they explain the reasoning of the court, so that nobody leaves a courtroom wondering what just happened and why did it happen. They will be able to understand that the judge has carefully thought through the issues and addressed every statutory and legal issue that needs to be addressed in coming to a just decision. I think the citizens of this county deserve that, and that is one of my goals if I were to become a county court judge in Brevard.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that response. Great. And I think in there you kind of wrapped up about what do you believe, and if you want to opine on it more, let me know. What do you believe would make a good judge? Anybody want to take that first? What do you believe would make you a good judge?
Well, I think Clarissa kind of touched on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing, what would make a good judge for me, in my opinion, and what I believe in bringing to the table, is treating everyone fairly. And making sure that when everyone walks in that courtroom, they believe that they know with confidence, if they're coming before me, that they're going to be treated fairly, they're going to be treated with respect, they're going to be heard. My entire career has been working in the trial system, and I've worked a lot of my time as a defense attorney. I've also worked with injunctions, and I've worked obviously in the family court system. It's important, and kind of what I believe makes me a good judge, or which would make me a good judge, is the fact that I can treat everyone fairly. I have a very good reputation in this community of working with law enforcement officers, working with state attorneys, working with judges, working with clerks, working with all of the parts that make our judicial system work effectively. That good reputation is carried over into becoming a judge. And I believe that that gives me kind of a leg up when people come in and they can feel that there is that connection. Then I think that they know that they're being treated fairly and they're going to have their case heard. Additionally, your cases need to be heard effectively, quickly, efficiently. You need to know how to move dockets as a judge, because all of these cases are coming in, whether it be through criminal court, whether it be through county court, or the numerous other things that county judges do. And you have to be able to make sure that people are feeling like they're receiving justice quickly and effectively, whatever side they're on, whether it's the plaintiff and the respondent, or the state, the victim, and the defendant. In order for that to happen, a judge like myself would have to have the experience that I have, which is moving dockets every day. I have done nothing but trial work my entire career. I'm currently working with a contract with the public defender's office in one courtroom as the defense attorney in that courtroom. So I know how it is to move dockets. And now you have small claims court, where you have the amount of small claims going up to $50,000. It's going to make dockets explode. The dockets are already large. So you need a judge that knows how to move those effectively so people receive justice, but in a fair and efficient way. And I think that's what I bring to the table.
Okay, great. Clarissa, you're first on this next question. How many jury trials have you tried? Have you tried any jury trials, and how many? Let's start with that.
All right. I didn't get a chance to answer that last question, so I'll just wrap this up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I have applied twice to be appointed by the governor to be a judge. Both times I made the short list, So my history in the courtroom has been very carefully detailed and vetted. And in that process, that I learned that I've done about 40 felony trials, serious felony jury trials over the years. And those are not just simple little misdemeanor cases or brief hearings. Those have been serious crimes with a lot of elements involving a lot of legal issues and pretrial work, a lot of jury interaction, and every phase of the trial that you would expect to see happen in a serious felony case. So those are my jury trials, and I've tried approximately 35 non-jury trials, and I'm counting the ones that involve some significant presentation of evidence. Non-jury trials sometimes occur in county court, in criminal county court, and criminal circuit court, but also I have a lot of experience doing non-jury trials and the whole range of other kinds of legal work in the civil arena, the family law arena, and the child welfare arena. So some of those trials in my non-jury tally include dependency court cases, termination of parental rights trials in front of the circuit judge, as well as family law, contested dissolution of marriage, child custody, child support enforcement, and those types of trials. So that's a rough estimate. Those are the ones that I had records of. I was able to present to that nominating commission. I believe there's a lot more that I just didn't keep track of over 30 years, but I have had a substantial amount of experience in trial work of both types. In terms of why I believe I would be a good judge, Maggie mentioned the caseload that she handles as a misdemeanor contract attorney for the public defender's office. As a felony trial attorney in the career criminal and firearms unit and the child abuse and sex crimes unit, I've handled up to 200 serious cases at a time. And remember, the state of Florida, under our beautiful system of American justice, bears the burden of proof in those cases. So the responsibility for preparing that case, for every case for trial, for handling all of the motion practice hearings and motion work, presenting all the discovery, doing the investigations, meeting with law enforcement officers, victims, witnesses, doing all the work behind the scenes that has to occur before a case can even reach a trial status. I've done all that, not just for one case, but for up to 200 cases at a time. It's a massive amount of organization that's required, prioritization, and some administrative skill to be able to manage that kind of a caseload, especially for more than 5-year period in recent years, but going back my whole career as a prosecutor for 12 years. So there's been a lot I've learned over the years, both from the judges that I've worked with and served as a trial court staff attorney, as well as in my role as an attorney. A lot I've learned about how to manage that caseload. It's extremely important. I'm glad Maggie mentioned it. It's something that every judge on our bench either has skills or has acquired skills to do because it's just purely necessary. The really important thing about that, though, is it can't just be moved. It has to be, every single case has to be given the amount of time and attention that it deserves, that the issues deserve, that the litigants, the citizens deserve. So that means you have to have an attention to detail, a commitment to preparation for every case that comes before you on your 200 case docket. You have to spend the time necessary to know your case, to make sure that no miscarriage of justice is occurring somewhere along the line, and to be able to process those cases through the system, bring the ones that need to go to trial to the trial court for that purpose, and to arrange all the logistics involved with that. It's a massive amount of organizational, logistical work involved for every prosecutor, especially who bears that burden of proof. We prosecutors welcome the burden of proof. That is what our system of justice requires. But what comes with that is a lot of work. It's work I've been proud to do. It's work that I think I've become very good at. And those are skills that I think are easily transferable for me onto the bench if I'm elected.
Thank you for that answer. Ms. Wagner, it's your turn. Go ahead. Just go ahead and answer. Have you tried jury trials? How many? and also opine on have you tried non-jury trials and how many? Okay.
So yeah, so for me, through the public defender's office, I was a public defender for 6 years. Most of my time at the public defender's office, originally before going into private practice, was doing serious felony cases. I was in the misdemeanor division back then for approximately 5 months before I was promoted to doing felony cases. At that time, I was with the Indian River County Public Defender's Office. I was there for about a year. My first trial case was a capital sexual battery case where I sat first chair. So I have experience basically from the word go and trying serious felony cases. And since then, in 6 years at the public defender's office, I know Ms. Harrell said that she's done approximately 40 trials. I have done probably at least 40 trials and worked on numerous others. And most of those, except for this last year and a half when I've been doing misdemeanors with the public defender's office, have been serious felony cases. I've worked on death penalty cases for the state of Florida and defending those. Which is what we was doing in private practice. So I've handled everything from trafficking in fentanyl and other illegal drugs to murder cases to sexual battery cases. Most of my time, if not all of my time, other than 5 months at the public defender's office, was trying serious felony cases. And those are very important. As far as non-jury trials, I have not done many non-jury trials. A criminal case, the person has a right to a non-jury trial. I would never encourage a citizen to give up their constitutional right to a jury trial. It's part of the fundamentals of our system. It's why our system works. And I believe that every person that is charged with a crime by the state of Florida has the right to have a jury trial, has a right to have their case heard by a jury of their peers, and for the state to have that burden of proof to their jury of their peers. So I've had a couple non-jury trials. It happens sometimes in misdemeanor court. Just so everybody knows, as far as county court and circuit court, county court is misdemeanors, is the criminal cases we're talking about. It's a year or less in the county jail, or 12 months probation is the maximum penalty. Circuit court is what people talk about for prison. It's a year or more in the Department of Corrections, all the way up to the capital punishment, to the death penalty. So I've spent most of my trial experience doing serious felony cases, sometime doing misdemeanor cases over the last year and a half. Non-jury trials, not so many. I've had injunctions before judges where there isn't a jury. Obviously, I've argued family cases, and we've had small claims cases in front of judges. But most of my time has been spent with a jury trial. And it's important because, as Ms. Harrell points out, we have the system where the state has the burden of proof, which is where the burden of proof should be if the government's bringing the charges. The state has an important job, but the state also has the facilities of having law enforcement officers. So they have the law enforcement officers go out, get the evidence, write the reports. The state attorney's office reads those reports, maybe talks to other witnesses, talks to the victims. But a defense attorney's job is much more complicated, in my opinion. And the reason that is because, like, when I train when I go do the training at the law enforcement academy for interviews and interrogations, what I tell the officers is, as a defense attorney, I'm quality control. It's not my job as a defense attorney to get the bad guy off. I live in this community. I have children in this community. I have a small business in the community. I want everyone in this community to be safe, especially for the people that I love, right? And for the people that are in this community that I'm in. But it's important that we make sure that everyone's constitutional rights are protected. And that's what a defense attorney does. We make sure that the law enforcement officers that potentially started it did their job and followed all the rules and didn't violate the rules of the Constitution. Then we have to make sure the state attorney's office did their job and they followed all the rules and they didn't violate any rules of the Constitution or anything like that. But then we have to talk to the defendants. We have to talk to the accused. We have to get their side of the story. We have to see if they have information. Do they have witnesses that I need to go out and need to talk to and get information from? I then have to talk to the victim myself through a deposition. I have to talk to law enforcement officers through deposition. So I'm doing everything that the law enforcement officers were doing, everything that the state attorney's done. I'm going through everything they've done, and then I'm doing more. And then I have to look and see, is there a legal issue here that I need to research and file a motion and argue to the court? It's quality control. and I have to do it effectively and efficiently to make sure in some instances that somebody doesn't get the death penalty wrongfully. It's a terrible injustice anytime someone's incarcerated when they shouldn't be, especially if their life is taken. And it's very serious consequences. And I've been doing that my entire career. You have to be focused, you have to be organized, you have to make sure not only you're doing your job properly, but everybody else has done their job properly as well. And I think that that's very important. Additionally, I was active in working on appellate issues, making sure that everyone's appellate issues were protected and preserved during trial, because after the trial, if something goes wrong, then the accused has the right, the defendant has a right to the appellate process. So all of those things are critically important in being any kind of judge, whether it be a circuit judge or a county judge.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your answer. Okay, let's keep going. Let me take a question from the audience. The most obvious question is, somebody asks, can someone explain what a county court judge handles? Who wants to take that?
I'll take it. We've been discussing this a lot on the campaign trail, and it's a common question. I'm glad it was asked. So county court is not only the misdemeanor crimes that everyone pretty much knows about, like driving under the influence, or simple battery or domestic violence, driving while license suspended, those types of misdemeanor crimes. It also includes small claims cases, which are cases up to a value of $8,000 in dispute. It also involves civil court cases, and those are cases like contract disputes or torts or things that involve damages up to $50,000. And Ms. Wagner mentioned that amount had been raised, which increases the number of cases being handled by the county court. That change went into effect about a year and a half ago, January 2023. So it did elevate the damage level for county court. So that I think the adjustments have been made by court administration on case distribution for that, to address that. So I don't think it's going to be an issue that we as county court judges would need to be concerned about. But that is a type of case that county court judges would handle, civil disputes involving damages in the amount of up to $50,000, above and beyond the $8,000 small claims cap. Also, you have traffic court. Also, you have uncontested dissolution of marriage, which falls within that realm of family law that I have 14 years of experience in. Also, a lot of people don't know that county court judges are eligible for appointment to handle circuit court duties on a temporary basis by the chief judge as deemed necessary to manage caseloads. So I know Ms. Wagner and I are both well familiar with times when our chief judge has asked a county court judge to step up and handle a circuit felony criminal court docket for some specified period of time to help with a caseload, or to help in situations where, for one reason or another, one of our circuit judges may be incapacitated or ill, or for whatever reason. So that is an option that the chief judge has, to utilize county court judges by appointment to circuit court matters on short-term bases. So that's one area that I know that I could add value as a county court judge, because my legal experience in the courtroom encompasses not only 12 years of county court and circuit court criminal work, I've also done 5 years of circuit court child welfare litigation and almost 14 years of family law and circuit and county civil litigation. So I feel that I am well qualified to not only handle all the duties of the county court judge that are the typical duties, but also any appointment opportunities that the chief judge might deem necessary.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Anything to opine on that, Maggie?
Yeah, just briefly, I think, everything that Clarissa said as far as the duties is accurate. And I think the other thing, as I pointed out previously, for misdemeanors, the maximum penalties for county court versus circuit court. A lot of people refer to county court as the people's court. And I've had a lot of people kind of on the campaign trail come up to me and say, oh, well, I hope I never come before you. And a lot of people say that. And of course, they think like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get arrested. But as Clarissa pointed out, it has a lot to do with something other than just criminal court. It's multifaceted. But whether you like it or not, you may end up in county court, or you may know somebody who is. You may end up in a small fender bender. You may end up in a small landlord-tenant issue or an uncontested divorce, or you may end up the victim of a crime or the defendant in a misdemeanor case. So obviously, nobody wants to necessarily end up in court, but sometimes it happens. And as somebody that would be working in the people's court, you have to have that experience dealing with people on a daily basis and handling those dockets, which can be large. And I think, as I've indicated through my experience, that I bring that to the table to help Brevard County and the justice system move efficiently and effectively.
Awesome. All right, ladies. Clarissa, this one seems to be directed to you. If you want to opine, let me know. If you don't, we can pass. It's totally up to you. I'm trying to get the question. It says, so many questions for Clarissa. Is it true that she was told to resign, fired, but then asked to take a leave of absence instead of because of her campaign? And what did she do that lead to those circumstances?
Oh my gosh, that's a completely offensive question. I'm not going to dignify that with a response.
Okay.
I've asked for a leave of absence to work on my campaign these last several weeks of this process because my caseload is so large, it was becoming very difficult to manage both. The state attorney, Phil Archer, issued a press release making it very clear that I had requested that leave of absence for all the right purposes, and he had granted that leave of absence for the same purposes I requested it for. I am an active member of the state attorney's office. I am employed there. I intend to remain there unless I'm elected, and I don't intend to dignify that question with any other response.
Okay, we can move on. All right. If you have questions, you can drop them in the comments, and if the individuals choose to respond, if they will let you know. So let's keep it moving. What is the most significant case that you have worked on as a lawyer? Just give me one. Oh, give me one. Go ahead.
I think one of the most memorable cases that I worked on was a case that I felt was a terrible injustice to a person that was accused of a crime. And when I worked on that case, we did everything we possibly could. We went over the state's evidence. We went over all the law enforcement reports, and we did our own investigation. And we had evidence in this case of self-defense. And as a defense attorney, obviously, and as the citizens of Florida know, you have the right to defend yourself. You have the right, if someone is trying to injure you, to hurt you, to meet that with force, to defend your life or the life of another. And in that case, as the defense attorneys, we were prohibited from presenting that defense. And it just broke my heart to see that we were standing on constitutional principles. And in that instance, we were prevented from presenting that to a jury. And had we been allowed to do that in defense of this person, then I think the outcome would have been different. And ultimately, that person was convicted of a crime I do not believe that they committed. And it's the only time, I believe, honestly, in my career that's ever happened. And it's few and far between, but it is so memorable to me and still moves me to this day that someone's rights were not preserved through the judicial process, that the judge in that instance, I believe, made the wrong choice. And there are consequences when judges don't make the right choice. And there are real consequences to that affect real individuals. So I firmly believe in our rights as citizens. I firmly believe in the rights that we're given to in the Constitution. And when those are not upheld, and when I am not allowed to do that for a citizen, for a person, it will forever stay with me. And I think has deeply impacted me as to the importance that of why, one of the reasons why I want to become a judge, why I'm running, and ultimately why I'd like to become a judge, so I can make sure that the laws are followed by everyone, that the Constitution is upheld, and that justice is served to every person that comes in that courtroom.
Wow. Wow. that leaves me speechless. Thank you for that response. Okay, Ms. Clarissa, your turn.
All right, I've had a really long career, 30 years. So trying to pick out one case that's been significant to me, or most significant to me, is a little bit of a challenge, but one certainly comes to mind. You know, a lot of times when you prosecute serious offenders, sex offenders, people who have committed crimes of violence or murdered other people, a lot of times as a lawyer, you realize that you are never going to be able to undo the damage that those offenders have done to vulnerable people in our society. You're never going to be able to put those lives back together, to help heal those victims or survivors of crime. There's nothing else you can do other than try to secure the conviction and protect the community from further heinous acts by those offenders. But there's one case that I tried when I was in the dependency litigation field, which is the child welfare field. And it is a case to this day, I have an abiding feeling in my heart that I did change lives for the better. It was a case where there were allegations that two parents had deliberately tried to starve to death one of their 4 children. The parents were represented by fantastic attorneys. There were 2 of them. At the time, I had no paralegal support. I had a huge caseload. I was the only attorney from Children's Legal Services who was handling that trial. It was an 11-day trial. It involved medical experts and testimony from a bevy of experts from hospitals in Orlando, where this child who had been found on the brink of death had been cared for a couple of years to try to rehabilitate him. He was thankfully rehabilitated. And aside from all of those factors, one really challenging additional factor was that my star witness was a 9-year-old little girl. She was the oldest sister of this child, lived in the home, of course, with the family, saw what her parents had been doing, and was able to testify during this 11-day trial. Very highly contested, tough trial in front of Judge Jeffrey Mall, who did an amazing job managing that case. So I prevailed in the termination of parental rights of both of those parents' rights. All 4 of those children were free to be placed up for adoption. They were adopted by loving families. I think about those 4 kids every day. I know that although that was a very, very difficult time for me professionally, trying to manage all of those different witnesses and issues by myself in a very important case, I know that I set the case up well for criminal prosecution of those parents. I know that those kids are safe and in loving homes. And I know that I made a difference in at least those 4 little lives. I think about them every day. And there's really no question that's the most significant case that I've handled in 30 years.
Both of you gave me some touching stories about these two different cases. Almost made me teary-eyed. But let's keep going. All right. What kind of things do you think you do outside of the legal profession besides just being lawyers? What do you do in the community? Where can we see you at?
I'm happy to go.
Go ahead, Maggie.
So for me, I am the mother of 2 very active girls that are in all kinds of different activities. My oldest is on the varsity track team, and she is active with her friends. And being a mom Uber as my side job is really what I do, because she's not quite old enough to drive. So getting her where she needs to be, and she's active in her church community and youth group. My younger one plays soccer, so getting everybody where they need to be, spending time with friends and family is really important to me. And being out in the community, I try to get out and see as many people as possible, because I feel like the more people that I kind of connect with, then they can kind of see who I am, where I'm coming from, and get the information that they need to make a good decision as a judicial candidate, because we're nonpartisan. So we don't pop up on anybody's ballot with a little, R or a D by our name. So it's important for me to get out there and speak to people and kind of get them not only interested in obviously voting for me, but interested in voting in general, because you cannot effectuate change if you don't show up to vote. So I think it's really important. I'm trying to do as much as I can of that. I'm also very active in my community. I am on the board of Legal Aid, which is an organization that helps indigent persons with civil issues. The Public Defender's Office helps people who are indigent charged with criminal cases, but we still have people out there in our community that need our assistance for issues that they have with divorce or landlord-tenant issues or injunctions. So I'm on their board. I have been, oh my gosh, I've been on their board probably for almost 8 years now. I'm also on the board of Brevard County Bar Association, which is a group of lawyers from all over the community in all different practices: civil, family, probate, tax, criminal, everything. And I'm on their board, and we serve a lot of organizations. We serve charity work. We serve children in the community through mock trial, through law day. That board is very important to this community, and I'm very proud to serve on the board with wonderful people who just make the world run, and they're amazing, and they do a lot for this community. So I'm very proud to serve with them. I'm also an active member of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, which is a very important organization to make sure that we advocate for all of the defendants in the state of Florida, and to make sure that our Constitution is preserved and that all of the rules are followed, and that's very important. So I serve with them, and I also, as I indicated, I do volunteer work with law enforcement to get out there and help train them on how to do proper interview and interrogations. Because if our law enforcement officers are not trained properly, then they cannot serve the citizens of Brevard County properly. And we have a wonderful group of law enforcement officers here in Brevard County, so I'm happy to serve them, to help them, so it really serves the citizens of Brevard County. So all of that keeps me pretty active.
Beautiful. Clarissa, what do you do outside of just being a lawyer?
Well, over the years, I've been very vested in professional activities related to the Bar Association. I served on the bar board for many years. I'm a former president of the Brevard County Bar Association, a former president of the Brevard Bar Foundation, which is a charitable group that helps different causes in the community. I've also been involved with the Vassar v. Carlton American Inn of Court as a mentor to certain team members at the barrister level. I have been involved with the advisory board at FIT for its pre-law studies program. I've been involved, I was an inaugural board member with the Palm Bay High School magnet program for law and public safety, that program, for 3 years. And I actually drafted the bylaws for that magnet program. I've coached high school mock trial teams, specifically at Palm Bay High School for 3 years. I coached Palm Bay High School's constitutional law team. I took one mock trial team all the way to state competition 1 year. I'm very proud of that. And one of my students on that team just finished up her year term as the most recent Brevard County Bar president. So I'm very proud of her, Miss Belita Cameron, another Palm Bay superstar. Outside of law, I've been very involved mostly with children's issues in the community. I just recently wrapped up a term on the board of directors of the Haven for Children, which, as you may be aware, runs 3 foster homes for children who have been removed from their families due to extreme abuse and neglect. My term on the Haven board involved a lot of fundraising activities, a lot of community activities, and of course some interactions with all the sweet kids who live there in those 3 homes. Outside of that, as with Ms. Wagner, I've been a very busy mom, stepmom, adoptive mom over the years. We have kids who are very active, have been very active in sports. I've been a volleyball mom. I've been on the ballet board of directors for 3 years. Football, travel sports, you name the sport, my kids have played it. So I've been very involved with all of that. My kids are all grown now. They're out of the nest. This has given me more time to dedicate to serving the citizens of the county in a county court judge capacity. Outside of that, I like to read, walk, spend time with my husband and my grandchildren.
Okay, awesome. Awesome, ladies. Do you believe there is such a thing as a victimless crime? And if so, what offenses would you place in this category? And let's start with Maggie first.
I would have to say no. I mean, if it's a crime, then under the law, then an offense has been done to another person, no matter what it is. But every crime is of a different offense level, and every crime should be looked at individually, and each defendant and each victim should be looked at individually to determine ultimately if they're found guilty or if they plead guilty, what the punishment should be. And we should make sure that each person is treated equally and treated fairly. But every crime, whether it's from, murder or sexual battery, all the way down to if you have a petty theft or if you have a trespass, technically it's still a crime because the law has been broken. So I would have to say there's never a victimless crime, but each crime is different and should be looked at different, but each person treated fairly when they come before the court.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for the answer. Ms. Clarissa, you're up next.
I agree. I do not think there's such thing as a victimless crime. Now, if you want to define crimes in a very narrow sense with regard to the elements of the crimes and what the charging documents for different misdemeanor and felony crimes look like, yes, there are charging documents that do not list a specific victim. And those might involve crimes like improper exhibition of a firearm, exposure of sexual organs, violations of municipal ordinances, things of that nature. However, as Maggie points out, society as a whole suffers when they're from the risks that are presented by those types of conduct. Discharging a firearm in public poses a grave danger to the life and well-being of all kinds of people, children playing in the street or at a park, for example. The other crimes it's pretty obvious too how the harm could befall other people. We have 3 branches of government. We have legislative branch that both at the local level and at the state level has enacted laws that help protect us, to help our community be safe and pleasant and orderly. And so as a judge, your job is to follow the law. Of course, if there are motions to suppress or to dismiss or to strike certain pleadings that are brought by defense attorneys or some civil litigants, motions for summary judgment, for example, the judge has an obligation ethically to fully explore those issues, take testimony about it, do the proper legal research, and determine whether that element or those issues can go forward or not. But generally speaking, there are laws that are in place for a reason. Our voters have elected legislators who have enacted these laws or city government officials who have enacted these ordinances. It's a judge's job to follow that law for the safety of the public and for the enhancement of our community.
Okay. We have another question from the audience. Let me go ahead and bring it up on screen. Let me see who wants to take this. It says, what are their opinions on changing the Florida Constitution or primarily by law making by the legislature? I'm not sure where he's going with that. Anybody knows?
Well, I think the general answer that I can give is it's not our job to do the legislature's job. As Clarissa indicated, there's 3 branches of government. The judiciary's branch is to sit and to look at the law and make sure that we follow the law. It's the legislature's job to create that law. So it would be improper for a judge to legislate from the bench, would be my opinion.
Right. That's what I thought on that. Okay, great. All right. So who are your major influences in your life, ladies, and why? Who influences you the most? And let's go ahead with Clarissa.
Okay. I've given this some serious thought as I've aged through the years, and I realized that in my daily practices, how I interact with other people, how I think about things, how I approach the work that I do, and the choices of the types of trial work I've done over the past 30 years are all reflective of 3 key influences. One is a religious influence. My maternal grandfather was a minister. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, and he went on to become a bishop. He dedicated his whole life to the church and to teaching the teachings of the Bible, and that was a big influence and comfort for me throughout my life. I continue that to this day through my involvement with my church, St. John's in Melbourne. I'm very honored that United Christians of America has endorsed my candidacy for county court judge. And I think that's a reflection of the commitment that I do feel to my religious faith and to what my faith teaches me about how to treat other people, whether it's people in the broad community, people in my own family, or the way I intend to treat people in the courtroom each and every day, regardless of their role in court or their purpose for being there. I intend to abide by what my faith teaches me about compassion and understanding and taking good care of other people's well-being whenever possible. So religion's been a big thing. Also the military. For half of my childhood, my mom had remarried someone in the Air Force. My former stepdad was an Air Force Master Sergeant. We traveled around off and on different military bases for about 8 years. I married into an Army family. My husband's an Army vet. We have 2 sons who have both served in the Army, one as a former Army Ranger who is now a law enforcement officer for Sheriff Wayne Ivey. The other is a Army Airborne Artillery Chief who's just recently left the Army to pick up his college studies as an engineer. So I'm very proud of my family history, but also in my own genealogy of all the people who have been soldiers and served the country. The influence of the military on my upbringing and throughout my adult life has given me a very strong sense of patriotism, a real value for order and for being and on the concept of advancing through life based on merit, on respect for all people, and for how an emphasis on public safety that has been drilled into me through my military experiences and upbringing, and also through my family's experiences, how important order and stability are to happiness of people in society. And I think that judges have a very unique, special role in helping to establish order and stability in people's lives through effective rulings, help them get back on their feet, put mistakes behind them, and achieve a higher level of satisfaction in their lives. And then finally, the third influencer on my life has been my very chaotic childhood. I know Miss Wagner's been through some tragedy in her life, and my heart goes out to her for it. I too have lost 3 members of my immediate family growing up under very tragic circumstances. My mom went through 2 rough divorces. She was a single mom, supporting us kids for long periods of time by herself without child support coming in. We, as a family, moved around a lot. I went to 9 schools before the 9th grade, suffered a lot of bullying during those middle school years, especially before I finally got to the wonderful Palm Bay High School. And so I'm very aware of some of the dynamics that go into how people interact with each other and the negative ways that they can influence each other's well-being through that kind of bullying, controlling, manipulative behavior. My life experiences, aside from all the moving around, have included some periods where we were really struggled financially. Food stamps, free lunches. I wore the same 2 outfits to school for 2 consecutive years, rotated them in and out every day. And I took a lot of verbal abuse from people at school for that. And so I'm very sympathetic to people who have gone through hard times. I understand how easy it is for people in good lives to find themselves in bad situations suddenly and to figure out how to cope with that. There's been an influence of the effects of alcoholism from my father's side of the family on my upbringing, very difficult and challenging set of events that my mom and I together have overcome over the years. And those are experiences that have really shaped who I am and how I see the world and how I value the importance of how people are going to be treated in a courtroom in which I might be the judge. I want to make sure that everybody feels valued and respected and honored, regardless of the reasons that brought them into court, and elevated when they leave that courtroom because they know that there is a path forward for them to rebuild their lives in a positive way, as my mom did for us. I mean, in spite of all the things I just told you, my mom made sure we had a meal on the table for every meal. We had educational books to read, and we had the instruction of our faith and the Bible for every single phase of that difficulty. And I'm so grateful to my mom for that. And I want to share that kind of uplifting message and the actions and words that I use as a judge and in all aspects of my career going forward.
You have a wonderful testimony, Miss Clarissa. You overcome a lot, and look at you now. You're an attorney. That's a wonderful testimony. It's amazing. All right, your turn, Miss Maggie.
The major influences of my life currently are my daughters. Everything that I do for them. I think that is the role of a parent, is to give everything that we can to make their lives better. And as a business owner and as an attorney, I try to strive every day to wake up and to do my best and to be a good role model for them and to show them that through hard work and determination, you can do anything. And the world is your oyster. And I hope that they can go on and they can be strong and do even better than me, and that they can give back to their community and they can grow up and be strong and be productive. So yeah, they're my biggest influences currently. The biggest influence I would have to say in my life was my mother. She was a beautiful woman. I'll try not to get choked up about her. She passed away when I was younger. She was actually diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 13 years old. I'm an only child, and she was a single parent. So it was very hard for us to kind of get that news and to get that blow that the doctors gave her. They gave her 6 months to live. And so obviously that was a huge kind of turning point in my life. But thankfully, I had a wonderful family in Brevard County. She had 2 brothers and a sister, and they kind of took me in when she was doing her treatments and when she was going through all of her chemotherapy and everything else. And they made sure that I was well taken care of. And I didn't necessarily want for anything at that time, but obviously it was a struggle. And she proved all of the doctors wrong. And she made it through that bout with cancer, and she showed them that she has absolute tenacity, strength, and determination to do anything she put her mind to. And I think that was really at that moment when I saw through her actions that nothing can stop you, that you can do anything that you put your mind to. And she was a social worker. She was loved in this community. She had many friends and obviously family. She was sweet and she was kind, but she was also just ferocious. And she would never let anyone tell her that this is your time. She was going to make her own determination. And she did that. And she was in remission for a little while. And unfortunately, she had another diagnosis where the cancer had returned, and they told her that she wouldn't make it to my high school graduation. And she went into treatment and she did everything she needed to do. And she fought like a warrior that she was. And she made it to my high school graduation, and she moved me on to college and to the next phase of my life. And she never wanted to let her or her illness slow me down. She wanted to show me and the world that through strength and determination, you're going to make it past any hurdle that life throws at you, that you are strong enough. And so I went through college at Florida State, and she was with me through 4 years. She was in and out of treatment and in and out of remission, and it was hard. And I saw her suffer, and it's hard to see someone you love go through that. But she made it through my college graduation, and she moved me off to law school. And she never wanted to hold me back from anything that I had my mind set to, and any dream that I had that she knew was being a lawyer and ultimately giving back to my community in that way. And so she took me off to law school, and we always had a promise that when it was time to come home, that she would let me know. And actually, it was my aunt that let me know, because my mother never wanted to stop me from pursuing my dreams. So my Aunt Kathy, I came home one time, it was spring break, and It was March 11th, and she said, it's time to come home. So I came home and took care of my mother. I dropped out of law school, which was my second semester of my first year. It was hard, but it was the best decision I ever made. I got to take care of her. She went into hospice. We have a wonderful hospice program here in Brevard County. They took care of her better, in assistance to us better than we ever could have. And she passed away on May 30th. So I was very grateful for that time. I was very grateful that I had that opportunity to spend those days with her. And then after that, and while I was here, I started working at the Haven, which Ms. Harrell has mentioned is a home for abused children that are moved into foster care from abusive homes. And I worked there while she was ill and then after she passed away. And a lot of people thought I would never go back to law school because they figured I just wouldn't be able to recover from her death. And it was hard and it was a struggle. But at that moment, I knew that's what she wanted for me. She wanted me to go on and do great things and be productive and go back to law school. So I re-enrolled in Stetson, and it was hard. It was hard to deal with that depression and that loss. But I'm so glad I did, because it ended up being the best decision that I ever could have made, because here I am back in Brevard County, serving the citizens of Brevard County, just like she did. And I'm eternally grateful for that. So she showed me through sheer strength and determination that you can do anything that you put your mind to, and that sometimes life is going to throw things at you and they're going to be hard and it's not going to be fair. And sometimes you just have to know that that's the way that life goes, but you can't give up and you have to keep moving forward. And I hope to instill that in my daughters, that through sheer strength and determination and will, that you can meet every obstacle and you can do it with kindness, dignity, and grace. And that's what I hope to bring to the bench in Brevard County.
Thank you for that answer. Both of you share some very nice stories about your background and childhood. The voters have a big decision to make, but we're going to switch back to a tough question. Let's talk about violent crime, particularly in youth violence. Is perceived to be at crisis level right now by many experts today. What, if any, do you believe is the appropriate role for the judiciary in addressing this perceived crisis in our county or anywhere? I mean, how do you think we tackle this?
Well, from a, may I go ahead and proceed, Mr. Vassiana?
Yeah, you can.
Sure. From a legal perspective, a judge is not able to inject herself into the backdrop of how proceedings are brought into court. I mean, you have to accept the cases that come in from the prosecutor's office and the defense attorneys and their clients, and hear the matters in an insular fashion on a case-by-case basis and give them all due attention and respect. So I don't think that there's anything a judge can really do about the broader societal problem other than do their job on the bench well, apply the laws that are provided to us in a common sense, judicially wise manner. Our statutes that relate to youthful offender sentencing, Chapter 39 that relates to juvenile delinquency, and even Chapter 921, the adult sentencing guidelines, all provide different aggravators and mitigating factors that courts can consider when they decide how they want to sentence a person who is either a juvenile by age and legal status or an adult by virtue of legal status. You could be a juvenile who's direct filed to adult court and be looking at some adult sanctions there, or you could be looking at youthful offender sanctions if you meet the criteria as a person under the age of 21 for those sentencing options. So the court may have ways to handle sentencing with the discretion that's granted to it by the legislature, but those are matters that are strictly to be handled within the courtroom according to the law. Now, one area where, and I feel strongly about this, one area where judges are ethically permitted to get involved is the area of legal education. The Florida ethics rules that govern attorneys and judges have special canons or caveats that deal with judicial conduct. Judges are permitted to go out into the community to address groups of children, for example, in this case, or young people, to educate them about the law and about our legal system. I've done a lot of this work in legal education over the years. I was nominated for a Florida Bar medal for my work in legal education. I've taught at numerous classes over the years, and I also served as the juvenile division chief of the state attorney's office for a time period before I got promoted to the career criminal unit. So I know a lot about juvenile delinquency in this county, as well as juvenile dependency, and there's an overlay in those areas. So what judges can do is go out into the community, talk about the elements of crimes. I frequently wonder how many of the young offenders we see in court had any idea that possessing more than 4 grams of fentanyl, whether they were just holding on to it temporarily or a friend dumped it off in their lap, whatever, if they were possessing 4 or more grams of fentanyl, that means if they're charged as an adult, they're looking at 3 years in prison, mandatory prison years, 3 years, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I wonder how many kids know about these types of legal issues before they commit the crime, because I bet if they knew more, they would not be committing the crimes and not be putting themselves in that position to face those really extreme sanctions. There are also enhanced penalty crimes where the more you do them, the more the penalties stack up, the higher the level of crime is. There are also the direct files I mentioned. Many juveniles think, oh, I'm under the age of 18. What can they do to me? They don't realize that they can be direct filed to adult court if there's a pattern of violent crimes that warrants it. And it happens on a regular basis because they're just, as you mentioned, juvenile crimes have been exploding over the years. And I really feel that if more young people knew about the consequences of their actions, they would think twice before engaging in those actions. This is something I've been passionate about my whole career. The first 5 years as a prosecutor, I used to teach at these legal classes that were like scared straight classes, where you have people from all parts of the criminal justice system come in and talk about the consequences of committing crimes. Even prisoners from the jail were brought in. And it really, I think, woke a lot of kids up. And I think if there were more legal education and a role for judges in helping to deliver legal education, it might be a huge deterrent to the commission of crimes, or at least the repeat commission of crimes by juveniles in our community and around the state.
And I actually have another question, but I'm going to let Ms. Wagner take that answer first. Go ahead and address that question, and we'll come back to it.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Well, I think the judiciary obviously has a huge role in our community. As an attorney, I had the benefit to be able to work, obviously, with kids that are in the system. As a public defender, I can vividly remember sitting in Judge Berger's courtroom, who was my judge at the time, and busloads of kids would come to the courthouse, and they would come into the courtroom and they would watch. The judges facilitated that. They set it up. The kids come and they sit either back in the audience or they sit up in the jury boxes, and they watch the proceedings. And that kind of gives them the opportunity to kind of look and see about what the judicial process is. Obviously, we want to impart on them that it's a serious process and you don't want to be here and it's scary, but it also gives them an opportunity to see what's going on in our governmental system, to see how all of the parts work together, what a lawyer does, what a judge does, what the deputies in the courtroom do, what the clerks do. So it gives them a huge opportunity to, get scared straight, which is really important. But as the judiciary, it gives us the opportunity to educate them about potential, how important our government is, the different roles in our judicial system, and hopefully get them excited about knowing what your rights are and knowing how the process works, because you have to be educated about the process. One of the other things that I got to do, I've had the privilege of being able to do, is the juvenile court system is separate from our normal adult system, right? So as long as they're not charged as an adult, Anybody under the age of 18 is considered a juvenile, and they're handled in juvie court. There's a pretrial diversion program in juvenile court system. It's actually run by the state attorney's office. And I had the privilege of being a guest judge. They ask attorneys or actual judges to come in and listen to cases. And part of this pretrial diversion program, it's a great program. Just so everyone knows, you can go to the state attorney's office and ask them about it. Your kids can go and volunteer. They don't have to be in trouble. The kids go and volunteer, and they can get their community service hours for Bright Futures or for their school, for whatever they're doing. And they can go volunteer, and it's an actual courtroom setup, right? So the kids are lawyers. One of the kids is a defendant. One of the children is one of the juveniles is a prosecutor, and some of the kids are sitting in the jury box, and they act as jurors in this case. And the cases are real cases. They're cases that have been diverted from the juvenile court system into this mock trial juvenile system run by kids, and I would be the judge. And these kids would present evidence in this real case. The defendant was a real defendant in the pretrial diversion program, and there were real consequences. And the kids got to present evidence and witnesses and do direct examination and cross-examination. Some of the kids that were sitting in the jury pool were there voluntarily, and some were actually serving part of their sentence. And part of their sentence was to go sit as jurors in this mock trial case. I would make rulings from the bench as the guest judge. And ultimately, if they were found guilty of, affray, which is disturbing a school function or whatever they were charged with, petty theft, whatever might have been that crime they were diverting, they would get a sentence. And the kids would help come up with the sentence. Is it going to be community service hours? Are they going to have to write a paper? I always imposed, if they were found guilty, my punishment as a judge that I added is that they would have to go with the deputies back into the back and take a tour of the holding cells, which if you've never been into a holding cell, they're teeny tiny. They're very cramped. They have an open bathroom. You have to get your water out of the toilet. So it's not a fun place to be. And that kind of educates the kids as to, if you get into trouble, if you're not, let this be a lesson to you. This is where you're going to end up. So the judiciary has all of these things that are out there that we can encourage, right? That we can try to get the community involved in, that we can try to get the state attorney's office and encourage the state attorney's office to keep offering these pretrial diversion programs, and the courts obviously to accept them, and the defense attorneys to utilize them as well. So we have a lot of programs out there. And as part of the judiciary, as part of the system, it's our job to make sure that the services that we have are utilized, and that if we can encourage their growth, that's what we do, because the citizens of our county, they're our future. And we have to make sure that they're educated about the process, but they're also educated about the potential consequences. I've had the opportunity to go as a guest lecturer over to Central Junior High School and speak to their classes about constitutional law. So I don't just, I'm not just training adults. I'm helping to talk to the youth and talk about how important the Constitution is, and answer their questions about how the government works and things like that. So we have a lot of roles. As a judge, I would potentially have a lot of roles within the judicial system to encourage what I can to help our youth and to help educate our youth. So crime, we can hopefully, the outcome is that crime goes down, right? If we have an educated population, hopefully we can kind of curve that crime problem and make sure that everyone is being a productive citizen as we move forward.
Okay, so can we have a conversation for a second, piggybacking off of what you just said? Is there a way? I know you guys are gonna, if either you get elected, you're probably gonna have a busy docket, right? I mean, no doubt. But is there a way for us to probably set aside at least probably once a quarter, 2 times a quarter, whatever it may be, to go in to partner with Brevard schools to say, let's target this school this month, and go in there and have an open form conversation with these young students before it gets to this level where they have to be in these type of programs where you that's where you're meeting them to educate them about their life choices. The old saying, prevention is better than cure. So if you can attack it before they actually get to that level where they actually being caught with fentanyl or whatever it is that something that you guys would be, obliged to do?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
And actually, I'm sorry, go ahead, Maggie.
No, go ahead.
We actually, our local judges just in the past 2 years have initiated a great summer program for summer youth. Judge Samuel Bookhart spearheaded this starting last summer, 2023. They just finished up their second summer in 2024. It's youth from all over the county who have an interest in learning more about the law over the summer months. The judiciary, all members of the judiciary have really taken an active role in helping these kids understand the system, letting them observe actual court proceedings, letting us attorneys interact with them and help conduct mock trials with them, teaching them every aspect of the law, elements of crimes, different courtroom settings. And it's a really fantastic opportunity. So I would encourage any Palm Bay residents or other residents from around the county who have preteen or teenage kids to look into that public law academy that the judges do. It's under the 18th Judicial Circuit website. It's a fantastic program. Also, in the past, Judge Lisa Davidson had spearheaded what was called justice teaching in collaboration with the Florida Supreme Court. And I was involved with that for a number of years. With Judge Davidson, I crafted a social studies program, a whole curriculum that was delivered to middle schools around the county. And we had Supreme Court justices come in and various attorneys come in and address social studies teachers as well as the kids about topic areas they could explore with specialized lesson plans that touched upon some of these issues that we're talking about now, which is basically how to deter youth from committing crime. So there are a number of great ways to approach this. There are a couple of avenues in place already. As judges, as long as our activities in the community do not adversely impact our caseloads, judges are permitted and encouraged to get out there and do just that kind of educational work. And that's something that I would certainly do.
And my problem is that the programs exist, and I know they exist, but I think a lot of parents are not aware. And so because of that, I think the best from my parent point of view is to actually go into the schools and talk to the students openly and candidly, open forums, bring them into, meet with the principal and say, listen, I want to come in and do a half an hour, just talk about whatever it is that is going on at the moment in the community. It could be it could be an outbreak of fentanyl. Let's meet the students at the school level and have that discussion without having to go through different programs and having to get on the internet and sign up for a program, because most of them don't know that those programs exist. And so if you attack it that way, I think it's probably the best approach. Now, either of you, both of you actually, if there's a message that you want to tell a young person right now, what would it be? One right now.
If I had to talk to a young person, it'd be like talking to my children, right? So if I have to talk to the youth, I'm directly talking to my own children, which is you have to make sure that you do the best you can every day. And that sometimes life is hard and sometimes life is unfair, but that never excuses your behavior, that you have to wake up every day and you have to do the best that you can. And that there's no excuses, that sometimes we falter and sometimes we make mistakes, but it's our job to wake up the next day and make sure that we make better choices, that we choose better and we do better, because it's not just us. It's not just, our lives that we're affecting, but we're affecting everyone else's lives around us. We're affecting our community. We're affecting our parents and our sister and our teachers. No matter what you're doing, whether it's outside of school or inside of school, you're impacting other people. And it's your job, not just for you, but to be your best, but to do that for everybody that you come into contact with. So, it kind of depends on what situation we're talking about. If we're talking about the use of drugs or alcohol, like obviously in certain settings, or, just how we need to be as citizens and as people and be our best selves. And sometimes it's hard. I mean, obviously we've talked about the struggles that, that I went through, that Clarissa went through. Life is hard, and we're going to have those daily struggles, but we can't take the
Many of
easy
these students, not to cut you off, are in bad environments. Their home environment is not good. They're they have those things against them, so life is already tough for them, and they're coming to school and they're struggling, and they're being influenced, and that kind of thing. So this is why I stress that I think we have to meet them at the door before it actually they come into your courtroom, and then you have to impose sentence on them and then try to fix that problem at that point in time. By then it's too late. That's the way I see it.
I'll try to put my two cents in on that whenever the right time is. I think it's really two different populations of students that we might be addressing. I think, Maggie mentioned talking to kids the way we would talk to our own kids. I 100% agree with that. There are messages we, as strong parents, are able to give our kids based on our professional experiences, our personal experiences, our own journey through resiliency. And I think that the message there should be to those kids: listen to us parents. We know what we're talking about. And sometimes it's a hard message to convey. But there's a whole other population of kids that you just mentioned, Mr. Vacchiana, and those are the kids that don't have strong support in the home. Maybe they're in a single parent household. They have one great single parent, but that single parent is having to work 3 or 4 jobs to put food on the table, and that child does not have the day-to-day support with schoolwork and hygiene and job applications or whatever it is that it takes for that child to get ahead. My advice to those children would be, number one, lean on your teachers. I had a great experience. I took a break from law back in 2016. I taught first grade for a year. It was fantastic. And my faith in teachers was utterly confirmed. My mom was a 38-year teacher. Teachers love their kids, and they are there for their kids. And my teachers growing up made a world of difference in my life and my ability to overcome things. And those teachers know how to find resources for their students who need them. They know, and they are motivated to do that. I would tell those kids, go to your teachers, be honest, lean on your teachers. They will help you. I'm confident of that. And the other thing is, I would tell them, read. A lot of kids don't want to hear about reading, but reading is so important. Whether it's a book, an actual book, or their cell phone, they can read about events going on in the world, educate themselves. Education is the most powerful tool to overcome hardship and to get ahead in life, because nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can diminish it, and it will give you a step up in the world. And that's something you can do completely on your own through libraries or a cell phone if you have it. Every day, take the time to educate yourself by reading something new and different. And I guarantee that will help pave the way to a better life.
Thank you for allowing me to have this discussion, because we need it. We need a discussion.
Well, Kevin, if I can just add also, teachers out there, it's what Clarissa says is true. The teachers, are a great resource, and we're out there to help. There are teachers, like I said, that have reached out to me to come and lecture to the classes. There are wonderful programs through Law Day and through mock trial, through our Brevard County Bar Association. So teachers need they need our support as well. Their jobs are hard and it's demanding. And so I encourage them to lean on us. If the children are leaning on their teachers, let the teachers lean on the legal community, and obviously the community in a whole, and let's be there to support the teachers, because they are doing that hard work.
All right, let's ask these last 5 questions and wrap it up. I think you kind of answered this already along the way, but let's ask it. Please describe your firsthand experiences, if any, dealing with people who are different from you socially, economically, or politically. Who wants to take it first?
Want me to go first? I'll go first, if you like. So I've already given you kind of an overview of my childhood. And during those 9 moves before the 9th grade and all of the chaos that occurred over the course of my childhood, I was plopped down into different schools and different neighborhoods. We had stayed with wealthy relatives, but we were living in the worst part of town. And I think when you are a new kid in school over and over and over, you develop an ability to adapt, and you develop some people skills. And I feel that over time, throughout my childhood, I really benefited from those challenges in many ways, because I feel it has helped me relate to the witnesses in my cases, victims of crime. For the 10 years I had my own law firm, it helped me relate to my clients going through difficult family law and civil litigation issues. I think that really having the experience of being in different communities, whether they're military or civilian, rich or poor, my educational experiences were very different. My undergraduate world was a Catholic university. My law school world was predominantly Jewish friends, high achieving, wonderful Jewish friends who are very dear to me. And I've learned a lot about people and cultures and values and how to relate to people. My volunteer work in the community has brought me into every neighborhood in this community, especially my years in junior league, where I was chairman of the community projects committee for a long time. And you recognize the suffering, the need in certain segments of the population. I feel empathy and compassion for those communities based upon my own childhood experiences and what I've made the effort to learn about their circumstances and their struggles all around the county. So I feel that in a strange way, the challenges of my childhood and of undertaking extremely tough cases for 30 years, those things have really helped develop me as a human being, and I think as a better Christian and as a kind of person who I think is better equipped to be a county court judge.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Wagner, go ahead, take it away.
As far as experiences that I've had, I mean, throughout my entire life, I've kind of building up to my legal career, I had the opportunity to kind of live and be in communities where, like I said, I came from mostly a single parent household. We didn't have all the money in the world. We didn't have all the fancy things and always live in the best places. But my mother also, as a social worker, she encouraged me to look at people as the same. Everybody is the same. It doesn't matter what your religion is, if you're religious, if you're not, if you're Black, if you're white, where you come from, how much money you have, that you treat everybody with equality, with decency, and with respect. And that was the foundation that she built for me. And the people that she surrounded herself with were kind, loving people who sometimes they were going through hard times. And she was always very open and honest, and we would talk about those things. And she always taught me to never judge another person, that I am never better than any other person, no matter what's going on in their life, that we are all equal. We come from the same place, and we're all going to return to the same place at some point in time. So then I got the opportunity to go off to Florida State University, which to me, coming from Brevard County, when I got there, I felt very sheltered because I felt like I came now from a small town, and here I am at Florida State University, one of the biggest colleges in the state of Florida, and it's hugely diverse. And there were so many opportunities to get involved in different clubs, and whether or not it was the local church that I got involved in, or if you did rush for sororities. And I lived in the dorms for 2 years, and I had that opportunity. So it was great, and it was wonderful. And I got the experience of dealing with people who come from the North and the South and from the West Coast and from all around the world. And I really got to listen to their stories and learn to live with them in a dorm. You're living with people, sometimes 4 people in a very small enclosed space. So it really teaches you how to be, an adult, how to live on your own, but it also teaches you how to learn to live within people in your community and hear their points of views. Because obviously when you're packed in that tight space, sometimes we don't always get along. So obviously we had to learn to deal with conflict and deal with different perspectives and different points of view. And I think that my background with my mother, and then obviously, going off to college kind of prepared me to then going to law school. And then when I became a lawyer, I'm a criminal defense attorney working at the public defender's office. I'm dealing with indigent persons who are some of the most desperate and in need people at the lowest point in their lives. And it's not my job to judge those people, because we've all made mistakes, and it doesn't make me any better than them, because Lord knows I've made mistakes as well. And I have to look at those people who are coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. I had to take all of that into consideration when counseling these people, because really an attorney is a counselor at law. And I had to listen to their stories, and I had to take time, and they're frustrated, and maybe they feel like justice hasn't been served, or maybe they feel like they're going through, some kind of mental crisis. If they're a veteran, they've gone through different experiences than the average citizen. And that's something that I really had to look at, and I really had to learn how to deal with, and look at each person on their individual basis and where they come from, and understand where they come from, and take the time to listen to them in order for me to help them. Because obviously my job as an attorney and as their counselor is to make sure that they get through the system, that they have equal justice, but then that it's all about eventually rehabilitation, right? How can I help this person through the system, and then help get them hooked up with the services that they need, that's going to work for them, that's going to work for their culture or their religion or their, socioeconomic background. And that's going to be best for them, so they can turn their life around and become, productive citizens back in our community, because that's what it's all about. It's all about rehabilitation and building a better community. So those are all the things that I've kind of had to experience, and my legal career in dealing with people, even victims of crimes through injunctions, and having to listen to them and be victims. The time that I spent working at the Haven with these children who were abused, and taking time, some of them had suffered from disabilities. Some of them obviously had mental health issues, and obviously they're just children, and they come from a whole host of different backgrounds, and they've been through a tremendous tragedy in order to get to the Haven in the first place. So it's not just learning how to deal with adults, but it's also dealing with children on a regular basis. And I think all of that experience really kind of sets me up to serve the community further as a county judge.
Okay, ladies, I think some of these questions we have left probably were already answered in one way or the other, but let's touch on them really fast, because we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help and the legal system? If not, what can be done to provide wider and better access? Who wants to take that?
I just briefly, I'll just respond by saying that fortunately, Gideon V. Wainwright back in, I think, 1963 laid the groundwork for all citizens to have representation in court. And we have a really excellent public defender's office here in this county. I think that some of the most talented defense attorneys I know are employed by the public defender's office. For those clients whose cases might present conflicts for the public defender, there is a bevy of private attorneys who serve as what's called registry counsel, or backup defense attorneys for people who qualify for the services of an appointed attorney. And that's a financial need-based evaluation. So fortunately, our court system has a mechanism for people to secure representation at low cost. I think there's a very minimal fee for that for those litigants. And the full array of defense attorneys that are available to take those cases are quite an impressive group, I have to say. As a prosecutor, I often hear defendants complaining in court about their public defenders, saying they want a real attorney. And I deal with the criminal defense attorneys day in, day out. I know who's really doing their job well. And some of those public defenders are among the very best in their field. So I feel that our Brevard County citizens are being served very well by our appointment process for criminal defense attorneys in the county. For civil cases, we have the legal aid group Ms. Wagner mentioned. Legal aid helps provide pro bono services for certain types of cases and certain litigants who qualify. I would only suggest that maybe that might be in the realm of a legislative initiative. Maybe if more funding could be secured to expand those pro bono programs for civil cases, that more people in the community could be served in those cases everything from, family law matters, which are very prevalent, to regular civil contracting, tort, civil claims, things of that nature. So there may be some room for expansion of pro bono civil legal services, but I think the criminal side is being well served.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your response. Miss Maggie, do you want to
Well,
opine on it?
yeah. Well, thank you. I was a public defender, and I also worked as a registry attorney. So Ms. Harrell's talking directly to, hopefully to me and to my profession, because I think that we do a wonderful job serving the citizens of Brevard County. And like I said, it's the people that need us the most. It's the people that qualify for the public defender's office. And a lot of times they're dealing with the most hardship of poverty, of mental health issues, veterans, and the issues that they go through. So obviously, the system that we have right now, I believe that the public defender's office does a great job. If not, I wouldn't be serving the public defender's office now on a contract basis. And I'm very happy to have the endorsement of the public defender, Blaze Tredis. And I think his office does a fantastic job. I think as far as our registry council goes, I would love, and I know the chief judge, Judge Crawford, would probably love to see more attorneys on that registry who are qualified. We have them now, but we can always use for that registry list to be expanded to offer people who are indigent the services that they need and that they deserve. There's also the legal aid, as Ms. Harrell indicated. I've been on the board of legal aid now for almost a decade, serving in that capacity, and they could always use more funding. So are they adequately served in the civil basis? Yes, the attorneys that are there that are serving, most of them are volunteering their time. Obviously, I'm volunteering my time to do that. We do a great job, but we could always use more help. We could always use more attorneys. We could always use more funding. We could always use more services in order to better serve the citizens of Brevard County.
Okay, great. Ladies, we're going to make this one the last one for the night. What factors are considered in granting and setting bail amounts for defendants? What do you believe is the primary consideration?
Well, I'll go.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, it's very clear. The law is very clear when a judge is considering bond, and it's the threat to the community and whether or not they're a flight risk, right? So that's what the judge is looking at. Whatever crime comes before the court, and obviously county judges, circuit judges, we're all serving in a capacity of what's called initial appearance judges. So whenever somebody's charged with a crime, they're going to come into court within 24 hours at the Brevard County Jail to the initial appearance court. Judges take rotations, and they all do their service, and they look at the affidavits that come in from the law enforcement officers, which are the police reports. They determine if there's probable cause. And then it's the judge's determination, if there is probable cause, are we going to grant bail? And what the court looks at, it's very clear. You look at whether, whether or not there is a continued threat to the community and whether or not the person is a flight risk. So they can also take into consideration the history of that person, which would include any failure to appears, anything like that. Obviously, if there's any violent crimes, if the current current crime that's charged is a violent crime, and they would take that into consideration as well. And there are services that the court can consider if the court determines that the person is not a flight risk or a continued threat to the community if they're released on bond. And they can set a monetary bond, or they can even release them on pretrial release conditions or release them of their own recognizance if a monetary bond is not necessary in certain cases, which that would be up to the judge. And judges have found in certain instances the person's not a flight risk and is not a continued threat to the community, and releases them on those programs. And they may have to show up to a community community supervision officer. They may have to engage in random drug testing. They may have to wear an ankle monitor. Things like that are all within kind of the judge's tool belt that they can kind of decide what they're going to do going forward. We also have the bond schedule that's set forth that judges look to and that we need to follow. Obviously, every judge needs to follow the law. So that's something that we can take a look at as well and go from there in determining if the bond in certain instances based on, the threat level or the flight risk level, if that bond needs to be increased from that standard bond schedule.
Just add something to that. To the question, the part of the question that had to do with the primary consideration, the bail determination is governed by section 903.046 of Florida statutes, and that sets forth a totality of circumstances evaluation. So the judge is required to really carefully consider a whole list of different factors and then to issue a detailed ruling itemizing, ideally, the basis for the ultimate decision. Ms. Wagner mentioned several of them. Some other factors I just want to add that are part of that list are the nature and circumstances of the crime charged, the probability and nature of intimidation or threat to the victim, specifically the victim of a crime, the offender's ties to the community, and whether or not that offender has committed a new crime during his time out on community release, whether that's been probation, community supervision, or some other kind of bond release in a different case. So there are quite a few factors that every judge needs to consider for each case. And ideally, those findings are made in a detailed fashion.
Okay, great.
I would just add to that, just so everyone understands, at initial appearance, obviously each judge is taking their time and they're looking at, I've done initial appearance for years. So I'm very familiar with the process, as Ms. Harrell is as well. The judges have to move quickly in order to make those determinations as well. So it's very important that if you're sitting as a judge in that capacity, obviously you're taking the statute into consideration. You're taking all the facts into consideration. The judge gets to hear from the state as their opinion on bond or bail, and they get to hear from the defense attorney if there's one there and one appointed as to the considerations. But it has to move very quickly. These things have to be done in an efficient manner, right? Because initial appearance, people deserve to know, are they going to get released and post that bond if they are, or know if they're going to stay in custody. So it's very important that that moves quickly and efficiently.
I agree. For initial appearances, that is the process, and it's governed in large part on that bail schedule. But then once the case is assigned to a trial judge, then the defense attorney has the opportunity to file a motion to have the bond readdressed in front of that trial judge that's been assigned, and that judge can do the more detailed evaluation, comparing the factors in the statute 903.046 to the facts and circumstances of that case and the criminal history of the client, that as Ms. Wagner just mentioned.
Right. And it's very important that the courts have adequate time and move their dockets efficiently to provide that, so we can have those bail hearings to determine if the person needs to be remanded into custody, if they've committed a new law violation and are a danger to the community, obviously, or if their bond should be reduced, if perhaps something, wasn't taken into consideration and that person should be released on a lower bond or on their own recognizance. So it's all a very important process, and the dockets need to move very quickly to effectuate fair and equal justice for everyone.
Awesome. Ladies, it's been a wonderful night. We literally went 2 hours with this debate tonight.
Well, we're lawyers, Kevin. We love this. Love to talk about law. Love to talk about what we have to offer. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes.
No problem. Thank you. I really appreciate the conversation we had. I'm looking forward to see what you guys are going to do for the community. If you get elected, remember what I talked about. I want to see you guys in the classrooms, in the auditoriums. That's my pet peeve. Attack it before it happens, not after it happens, and then try to steer them straight. That doesn't work for me. Before it happens, and get with the school board, get with the principals, and say, let's have a conversation. Whether it be an hour out of the day, just bring all the kids into the auditorium and let's have a conversation, ask questions, and introduce them to the legal field, whatever it is that your approach is as far as delivery of said subject, whatever it is you choose to talk about that day. But that's what I want to see happening, because too many of our youths, we're losing them to too many different things, and once you lose them, you can't get them back. Some of them, you just can't get them back. And so that's my pet peeve. And that's my little rant for the day.
They're our future. They're our foundation. So I agree. We
Yeah.
need to invest in them as much as possible.
Exactly. So I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to tell the audience why they should vote for you. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, so I'm going to remove myself from the screen and Miss Maggie from the screen, and go ahead and make sure you you tell the audience where they can find you on the social media platforms, etc. If you have a telephone number or if a team of people that they can reach out to ask further questions, also elaborate on that. And if you're going to be appearing at another forum at some point in time, let them know that about that too. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to this 2 hours of conversation that Mr. Vassiana has been kind enough to host. I know Ms. Wagner and I are both very grateful that there are people in the community who are really interested in the issues that give rise to our candidacies and our goals and our experience levels that we bring to the table. It's just refreshing to know that the citizens of Palm Bay, specifically, and Brevard County at large, are this civic-minded and interested in the future of the county. For me, I had a chance to tell you some things about my experience in the courtrooms over the past 30 years. My website, harrellforjudge.com, that's HARRELL for FOR judge, all run together.com. That website has almost a dozen pages of information about my entire legal career, my professional engagement, other things I might have missed, like my work as the chairman of the grievance committee, investigating attorney misconduct, things of that nature, all my work in the community, my family life, and my time on the campaign trail. I think anyone that visits my website will see I have been out in this community, all over this community, most recently spending a lot of fantastic time with the Caribbean American and Latin American communities of Palm Bay, trying to explain my passion for being a county court judge, my passion for the law, my desire to elevate the experiences of people in court, to bring positivity and attention to detail and genuine care to the proceedings that a county court judge handles here in Brevard County. I ask you for your vote, and I, again, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yes.
It's your turn now, Miss Maggie. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hanging in there. We can talk a lot, and I can talk a lot because this is a subject that I am very passionate about. I'm passionate about this community. I appreciate you all for taking the time to sit here and listen throughout the duration. I encourage you, if you have any follow-up questions, to make sure that you educate yourself. A lot of times, and you're doing that, you're taking the first step by being here tonight. But so many opportunities are out there to get out in the community, but so many opportunities you can go to educate yourself by coming onto my website. It's www.wagnerforjudge.com. It's all spelled out, for FOR. And I encourage you to get on the Facebook platform. You can go onto my Facebook page. You can like it. You can check it out. It'll tell you about events that I've been to, events that I'm going to. And if you would like to ask questions, you can email me directly. You can email me at Maggie, MAGGIE, @wagnerforjudge.com. You're also welcome to message me on Facebook, ask any questions that you like. The only way for you to be an effective citizen and for you to help yourself and help your community is to educate yourself and to go out and to vote, because the only way you can effectuate change is if you actually go out and vote. So I encourage everyone. As I indicated, mail-in ballots are out. Early voting starts October 21st. It goes to November 2nd. There are 10 early voting locations in Brevard County. There's 2 in Titusville. There's 2 in Palm Bay. And the other ones are sprinkled out in Merritt Island, over at Wickham Park, and in Vieira. You can go on the Supervisor of Elections website and you can get those locations and the times that they're open. During the week, it's about 8 to 6. They're also open on the weekends, 8 to 4. So after early voting ends, there's a little break, and then we have our final voting day, which will be Tuesday, November 5th. I encourage everybody to get out there and educate yourself as much as possible. Go to the website, go to the events. There's going to be another judicial debate, I believe, coming up this Saturday in Titusville. It's at the Titusville Mall, and you can go onto my website or campaign, and you can check that out and get the information, or message me or email me directly. Everyone needs to educate themselves because county court judges matter. County positions matter because they affect the people. It's the people's court. They affect the most people in your county. So I encourage everyone. You've heard this whole thing for 2 hours about my experience, about the things that I've done. I just want everyone to know how passionate I am, how much experience I have, and how much I have to bring to the table as your next Brevard County judge. And if you have any doubts and if you have any questions, let me put all those aside and answer them for you. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to your vote on any time between now and November 5th. Thank you so much, Palm Bay, and thank you so much to the citizens of Brevard County. And thank you so much, Kevin, and so much to Palm Bay Live for putting on this event so people can educate themselves about their judicial candidates.
And thank you both. Thank you both for appearing on the platform. Thank you both for graciously allowing me to reschedule this event. We had the hurricane that came through, and then unfortunately I had a medical event, so therefore I had to push it back. So I was but we're here. We did it. We
You did
conquered
it.
2 hours of
Thank you.
conversation, and I'm pretty sure the audience is going to be able to go back. This is recorded. It's going to be on YouTube. It's on Facebook, and this is where we get the most views because people come back on their downtime and watch it over and over again.
Wonderful.
So you can share it to your different individuals that you want to get your message out. So thank you again for showing up. Thank you for being a part of this,
Thank
and
you.
good luck to you on the campaign trail. And audience, I can't tell you who to vote for. I don't even know who I'm voting for. Both of them are great candidates. So both of them are great candidates, and at some point in time I will make a decision, and then hopefully it will be an informed decision, and I'll move forward. But
Yes.
have a great night, everyone. Talk to you
Thank you.
soon. Remember, election day is coming up, and early voting starts soon. So go and vote. Have a great night.
Yes. You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tatiana. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.